isn't. And I realized that a lot of the teachers, they just kind of teach to the middle. So if you're a
Right.
student that's like really, like really smart and you can move ahead, they're like, nope, we're on 4.5. That's it. We're not going
Right.
further. We're only doing 4.5. And if you're a student that's kind of maybe stuck on still 3.9 in Go Math, they're like, you better catch up. So what can we
Right.
do? Or, I mean, you were in the classroom, like, what was your experience? And like, if you had to talk to a frustrated parent like me, like, how would you be able to
Right.
help me navigate through this?
Right. Well, first of all, I would say that number one, teachers must make sure their teaching strategies align with the learning preferences of students, right? So when you have a group of students within the classroom, it's important to note that there might be differences in their levels of of performance in their knowledge and so on. So it's important to differentiate instructions, right? It's important to provide differentiate assessments. Some kids may not necessarily be good at, for example, testing, but they may be good at a project-based assignment that would yield the same result. They would still gain knowledge from that. It's important to have different forms of activities, project-based learning, having groups within the classroom that you can separate students based upon their interests, based upon how you assess them and so on, but you're still gaining the same outcome. So I think differentiating is really important in achieving that learning outcome that we want for all our students, because not one teaching strategy will fit every student, right? Some students learn by visual, some students have kinesthetic ways of learning, some kids are audio, and for example, you may have a kid. I've had a kid before with some audio processing problems. And as a result, if you speak most of the time as a teacher, that kid doesn't learn anything. So that kid requires visual, that you write it on the board. So we have to be able to have multiple ways in which we reach students within the classroom, and we have to be able to understand the individual needs of each student. We can't group everyone as the same. We have to treat them as individuals with different needs and different roads to get to where they need to be. So as a teacher has to be innovative, creative, and a teacher has to understand the needs of each student within the classroom and differentiate the strategies, the instructions to reach those students and ensure that they are learning. So within my classroom, I used to have multiple activities taking place. Students were not just assessed on one means. Some students were assessed using project-based learning. Some students were assessed. We had kids in different groups. We consider the best way that a child can learn. If a child is more visual, then there will be stuff on the board. If a child is more auditory learning, then we look at ways in which we can provide activities that would involve listening to different things and so on. And we emphasize a lot on teamwork as a group and being team spirited, and members of the team would uplift each other. So for me as a teacher, when I was teaching, I even though sometimes it's emphasized to have a competitive spirit, I felt that it was important to have a team spirit, and we are all going to win as a team.
All right. So you said a couple of things. Do you believe, I'm going to ask, so I'm going to follow up on what you said. Do you believe
Right.
the teachers that are in the system right now are trained to teach the way that you're saying, having different groups where you have the auditory student, the kinetic student, the ones
Right.
that need to be part of a project? Are the teachers in the classroom right now trained to teach that way?
Right. Well, training, Sandra, is always an ongoing process. You're never fully trained as a teacher because you're always encountering different things, right? So training should be ongoing and sharing of your experiences. So teachers, they used to have what we call PLC, professional learning communities. And in those professional learning communities, teachers would share the things they encounter within the classroom, and we would try to learn from it. So training is important. Training should be ongoing, and sharing of best practices should be ongoing. So I would say that for our teachers, I wouldn't say every teacher is doing that kind of approach in terms of trying to reach every student, but it should be part of our goal to try to be the best we can be. And every school should have opportunities for teachers to learn from each other, to share best practices, and to have these regular weekly learning communities, so they can make themselves better. And we should never, as a teacher, think that we know it all. We're there. We don't need anything else, because even if you're a 20, 30-year teacher, there's still something more you can learn. And as a teacher, that's what I've discovered, is that every class I've learned something different, and how to reach students that I've never had before.
Okay. And the other thing is, like, do the teachers have time to do what it is that you're talking about, right? Because there's always this testing. They're preparing for the FCAT. They're preparing for something, preparing for this, you know. So
Right.
do the teachers have time, in the way the school is set up right now, to make those to teach the students in all of these different ways?
Right. Well, I am, and I'll tell you, Sandra, I'm not a fan of the emphasis we place on standardized testing, because I really believe it takes the fun out of learning. And I really believe in the end, it kind of reduces learning outcome. So we spend sometimes the entire year worrying about taking one test, when we really could have accomplished so much more in terms of the way we teach, the creativity in teaching, the fun in learning. So I hope that someday we'll get away from this total emphasis on one factor to determine student learning outcome. So yes, you are right. Teachers may not have a lot of time, because of the pressure they're under with having to achieve scores on these standardized tests. And as a school board member, I am hoping that, I can do my part into seeing how we can have these, we do have to deal with the standardized test, because it's part of, unfortunately, it's even part of teachers' pay, performance-based pay for teachers. But at the same time, I think we need to do everything we can to alleviate some of the stress that teachers have, so they can spend more time creating quality instructional materials. For example, as schools, I think we need to provide more instructional time for teachers, so they can spend time planning more for their classroom. Sometimes they don't have enough time. 41 period in the day to plan for your entire day may not be adequate. So we ought to look at, in the future, at how we free up more time for teachers to be able to plan and have creative solutions within the classroom.